Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the CSTV. I'm your host Kathleen Egaltoto, Madam CS, and this is the Striker. Stay tuned and have a true and thrill. In today's episode, actually, we are going to look at how bandits operate. Some individuals have texted me asking me about we have terrorists, we have gangs and militias, and now there's this thing about bandits. We have cattle rustlers. So what is the difference in all these? So for us to, I thought it could be wise that for us to understand who exactly bandits are or what exactly is referred to bandits, it could be nice if we looked at their ways of operation so that you can be able to find, what uniquely actually defines them. So when we look at bandits, they are majorly operating, like these are criminal groups that operate majorly in isolated areas, but these areas must have something that is of interest to southern warlords. So we know most of the times gangs operate like in the cities, where they are able to attack people and get maybe money, they are able to get property, and sometimes they can even control matatu terminals, water sources, etc. But when it comes to bandits, they tend to operate in isolated and marginalized areas. But within those marginalized and isolated areas, there must be a very valuable resource that the warlords, either from that region or outside that region, find very, very valuable, and therefore they are interested in harnessing its benefits. And that tells you that there is a very big difference between cattle rustlers or cattle raiders, the common cattle leaders, and the bandits, as we call them. Cattle rustlers are people, this is also like, low profile thieves of cattle. And many times cattle rustlers don't have that one specific or organized kind of hierarchical structure of how things operate when they go to steal. And cattle rustlers many times may not steal a lot of cows, because for them, it's like, I can call them petty animal thieves. But when you come to bandits, these are a high profiled group of cattle rustlers. And this high profile group of cattle rustlers, they must have a patron, and many times these patrons can be the political elites in or outside the area where they are situated. It can be business elites, the high-end business people, etc. And then they also have a chain of command, the way instructions come from who receives what, who does what. And they have a very organized way of getting their weapons, and they know specifically the weapons that they need. They don't just go for any weapon, and that's why you realize, like in the North Lift, bandits have like AK-47s. That's a very serious machine, a very serious machine, and this machine is in the hands of bandits. So it is like they know the specific weapons that they want and how those weapons are used, how and when. It's not all the time that they are going to use that AK-47. It's not all the time they are going to use all that machete. Each weapon has a specific time that it should be used, and this is also determined by the distance between the bandits and the enemy. Sometimes, the victims attacked, or even the police officers following them. So it all depends. So there's a lot of training also on these uses of these weapons and how they are stored, how they are even cleaned, all those things. And then there's always an agreement on what these bandits are supposed to get after they have done an operation. there's always kind of remunerations. It's like a job. So there's somebody who is paying them. So when you look at the bandit mode of operation, it's actually a terrorist group. It's only that it is a local terrorist group. If we look at the bandits in the North Rift, they are not different from Al-Shabaab in the Al-Shabaab in Somalia and what they have been doing in Kenyan soils. It's only that for Al-Shabaab, it's only they focus on, you know, large audience and geographical coverage, such that they will tend to hit maybe at the city center, where they know that the casualties will be great, and this news will travel across the group, you know, and therefore they can be able to get that global attention. But for bandits, it doesn't matter whether they will get the global attention or what. For them, what matters is that valuable property that they are going to pick from a certain region and make sure that their warlord has exchanged that property for money or for something else that can bring income. So the way the bandits operate explains why actually it is not easy to wake up one day as a government and clear bandits and say now we have cleared the menace of bandits, because banditry is a very complex and large network of, you know, strands connected. And when I'm talking about these strands, they are warlords. So for these warlords to make sure that this business thrives, because for the warlord, this cattle lading or this banditry is a business. It's a business where they invest. One could wonder, how do they invest? They invest through the purchase of weapons. They invest through the designing of shoes and attires for these young men who are sent to steal cows. They invest in terms of transportation of the animals stolen to the final destination for selling. They invest in ensuring that these bandits have a place to sleep, or like they have hideouts. Like they invest in the sustenance aspect of these young men that they send to the fields to steal cows. They also invest in bribing rogue public service officers to conceal any cases or any traces whenever there is that aspect of, you know, we are tracing bandits. So they use a lot of money in this particular business as investment, and therefore they have to reap all as maximum profit as they can from this particular business. So for the warlords who own bandits in the North Rift, that is like business like another. So within this business, they have created networks. So these networks, the strands could involve the following people. If, for example, cows have been stolen in, let me say, Bokoth, or even Turkana, or even Kabedo, those cows will not be sold in the same region. Definitely, the cows will find their ways to the slaughterhouses in Nakuru and Nairobi. So, in Nairobi, they already have a ready market, meaning there is somebody in the city who is well connected with this warlord and knows that today we will receive maybe 100 cattle or 200 cattle, and create that space, and those animals are supposed to be slaughtered maybe within the shortest time possible. Number two, they are the police officers. There's no way cows can move from the North Rift and find their way to the city just like that without passing through any police checkpoints, etc. So we must also have a strand within the National Police Service, either the traffic officers, you know, the commanders along those lines, the transition lines, the roads where these cows are transported through, we must have somebody who has been bribed and who is made aware, you know, we will pass through this place at this particular time. Please tell your boys to not to give us stress, you know. So that's another strand. Another strand is the person who will hover this transport service. These cows will not be moved by foot. They will be moved by a truck. And this truck definitely belongs to somebody. And even if this truck belongs to the warlord, there must be a driver and some few people who will escort these cows from North Lift to Nairobi or to Nakuru. So this person also, you know, has to be made aware. This cattle you are carrying, these are stolen cattle, this is how you maneuver, and this person also has to be paid. Then there's the judiciary, you know. There's a lawyer who knows somewhere that so and so deals with stolen cattle or bandits. This political elite or this business person is one person who actually into the business of banditry. And therefore, just in case this political elite is called, or this warlord is summoned for investigations either at the DCI or another government agency that is mandated to handle this thing, as a suspect, there must be a lawyer who will always be there, you know, to defend the client. You know, my client is just being hunted politically, or my client is just hunted in the world of business. These are speculations, and this lawyer will make sure that all evidence actually is destroyed, that could have the evidence that could have placed this warlord in the scenes of crime of banditry has been destroyed. So you see, it's not a one-man thing. So there's the warlord, there's the judiciary, there's the police service, there's the transport sector, there's the market sector, and now there are the boys who goes to do what? To collect, to get the cows. And it's very important to note that there must also be a spy. There are people within this banditry group whose work actually is not even to go and collect the animals. Their work is to go and collect intelligence. We saw like 1,000 cows in certain village. The question could be, whose cows are those? How many are they? At what time do these people sleep? How much armed are these people? Like how is the security situation around the area? How long does the police take to respond to a call, a distress call? How far is the place to where we can, you know, put the cows and move forward, etc. So there's somebody who does that. There's also somebody who brings the guns, because this warlord is not the manufacturer of guns, nor is these boys who are going to steal the cows. So there's a gun dealer somewhere who is supplying this warlord with guns, such that he takes the guns to these boys. So you see, ending banditry in Kenya is not going to be just a security issue, and cannot be looked from a security point of view alone. It's not like just entering the city and you start tracing Gaza members, for example, or Mungiki members, or even, you know, Cheshire Mbakazi members. You know, these street gangs, you can easily eliminate them because they are not so much connected when it comes to their network and public. But when we talk about gangs, it is something, when we talk about bandits, it's something else. It is a highly complicated network of stakeholders that is benefiting from this business of banditry. One could wonder, how are these people recruited into these groups? First, as I said from the introduction, bandits normally operate in marginalized areas, but these marginalized areas must have something valuable that is of interest to the warlord. For example, when you look at most parts of the northern part of Kenya, they have been like somehow neglected since independence, actually since the colonial period, and the environment also is not so much favorable for so many economic activities, and therefore the major valuable that these people have is their livestock, and we know that livestock is money, you know. So growing up, people in the region, they have developed the connection with their animals, and for them, they know these animals are their life. And why is this connection coming in is because even after independence, these people have been electing leaders, but you still find there are no passable roads to the northern part of Kenya or to most of these marginalized areas. There's no enough infrastructure, there are no enough hospitals, there are no enough schools and classrooms, you know. Like there's no effort by governments even to irrigate or to find a way that they can be able to make the place productive apart from the pastoralist activities taking place there. So what's happening that most of the leaders from these parts of the country do not bother to develop the regions, because the moment they know that the moment that the region will develop, they will not get frustrated youth to recruit into their bandit groups. Because as a young man growing in the north, what comes into your mind? You and your cows. You see, there's nothing much. It is you and the cattle. If you had a chance to go to school, well and good. We have those ones who have really gone to school and they are doing so much well in life. But majority of them end up also living in the city, because back at the village and everything, there's a lot of conflicts, a lot of banditry, etc. So you realize that the political elites and the businessmen who are the elite in those regions make sure that no substantial development takes place in the region. And because of that, they keep on thriving on the narrative that see how the government has neglected us. Remember, they are the chosen leaders, but they will keep on saying, see how the government has neglected us. So it is us they syndrome, the us versus they conflict. So this is what the young people growing up in the region are done what? Are actually introduced and socialized to, that the government is against them, etc. Then comes another thing. This young person has dropped out of school because floods come, they wash away schools. You stay out for like 3 months. Drought comes, the children cannot go to school hungry. You are out for 3 years. Banditry is taking place, you are displaced. Interclan conflicts, you are displaced. So eventually, most of these children don't end up studying. Or even if they go to school, they are subjected to the same exam as a child who is in Nairobi or in the western part of Kenya. And this child from the northern part of Kenya has been to class maybe in that year for 3 months only. And there is no any affirmative action that is done to even bring that boy or that girl from the northern part of Kenya and give her a better chance in a better school or in a better institution like the rest of the people. So you realize, yes, they fail. They are back at home. For ladies, they get married. For men, what do they do? Oh, join other boys in the field to take care of the cattle. So it is in these fields that these boys are actually groomed and socialized into these groups. because they are told they have to protect their cows. They have to learn on how to use weapons to protect their cattle, etc. So you find that the politicians take advantage of these oppressive situations, sport geography, and those ones that have been intentionally instituted by them to bring this poison on board, and they promise them money, promise them better living. So what will you do if somebody has promised you money and you are in a situation that is typically hopeless? So that's what happens. So you realize that for these bandits members, since childhood, for them seeing a gun, it's not a big deal. They know even how to use it before they are even introduced to banditry, you know. It is something that they have seen since childhood growing up. So it's not such a big deal. So I also always hold that so long as we have underdevelopment in some parts of this country, especially the North Lift, ending banditry is not going to be an easy thing. And sometimes people say that the youths of this country don't learn, and I realize that we always criminalize the youths a lot when it comes to violence, but we fail to look at the old in the society who are actually promoting this criminality, using the youth. The youth are only using as a battlefield. I want to ask a simple question. Since Kenya, for example, gained independence, it is like around 60 years old. 60 years have passed since Kenya gained independence. It's been 13 years that have passed since Kenyans voted in the new constitution about devolution. Why do we have some counties really developing in terms of infrastructure, you know, roads, hospitals, schools, etc., but the counties from the northern part of Kenya continue to face same problems that they have been facing since independence? Why can't we see roads developed towards the northern part of Kenya? You know, why can't we see the governments investing in university education in the northern part of Kenya and the better schools? Why must we have all the best schools in Nairobi, Western, Nyanza, Eastern, etc., but not the northern part of Kenya, for example? You know, why is it that honestly even hospitals in the northern part of Kenya is a problem in this century, when other counties are opening big hospitals, big morgues, you know, everything? You see development in other regions and you don't see the same development pace reflecting in the northern part of Kenya. So it tells us one thing. In as much as every day we will be calling, oh, the government needs to do this, the will to end banditry in the North Lift has nothing to do with the national government in Nairobi or elsewhere. It has everything to do with the local leaders in the North Lift. You know, the political leaders, you know, those MCAs, those members of parliament, those governors, those women representatives, those senators, those are the people who are supposed to end banditry. It's not even the police officers who will end banditry in the northern part of Kenya. The problem in the northern part of Kenya is not only a security problem. The problem in the North Lift, and I've always said this, banditry in the North Lift is not a security problem alone. It is an economic problem, it is a political problem, and it is a social problem. It is all these economic, political, social problem that has been interwoven within the strands of geographical marginalizations and disasters, and we keep on saying, we keep on blaming nature, we keep on blaming geography, you know, and sometimes we blame the local people. But the question is, when we say that we are going to the North Lift to end banditry, do we meet with the politicians from the local region, from the North Lift? Where are they? What efforts have they made? You know? And when one politician, for example, is arrested for interrogation, what do? We see people, whole political parties. That's the time you see even these coalitions. If it's Azimio, it would say one of their own is being targeted. If it's Kenya Kwanza, they would say, oh, one of their own is being targeted. So we politicize such issues, and we forget that actually bandits, hiyo si Mungiki. That's not like Mungiki. That's not like Gaza. That's not like Jeshi la Darachani, Jeshi la Embakasi. That's not like Chinkororo. That's not even like the simplest of the, like the Masai Morans. That's not the thing. It is just a network, and you will be surprised that this network moves across the country to be able to have that transportation of those animals from the city up to Nairobi or to Nakuru, end-to-end slaughterhouse. It means there's cells and participants in these bandits across almost the entire country, and therefore it's not a one-man thing that somebody can wake up in the morning and say that today we are ending it. It will take time, but a multidisciplinary approach is needed towards ending this banditry. So that's all about the bandits today. This is like a terrorist group. It's only that it's operating in isolated, marginalized areas, and it's operating locally. Otherwise, bandits and terrorist groups are almost in the same category when we talk about violence and conflict. Stay tuned and see you next time as we look at another wonderful video on security, violence, terrorism, and political situations in our country. Bye.